of speed, color, drama, and excitement. The American Sports Cavalcade.
This is the historic American Club, a beautiful resort hotel located in the lush green surroundings of central Wisconsin. Originally built in 1908 by the Kohler Company to house its immigrant employees, the American Club was a haven for the newly arrived workers. It was here they lived, ate, and learned English so they could fulfill the lifelong dream of all immigrants, to become American citizens. The American Club is just one historic landmark near Elkhart Lake. The other is the largest and most beautiful permanent road course in North America, Road America. At 4 miles with 14 turns, it is awesome, both in its size and the challenge it offers all driving teams. Hi, I'm Ed Bruce, and once again we have the privilege of returning to Road America to bring you the GTP endurance races. You may recall in last year's coverage, the exotic new 600 horsepower Porsche 962, driven by the team of Derek Bell and Al Holbert, took the checkered flag in a display of skill and raw power. Well, today we expect to see much more of the same type of action. My partner Steve Evans and Brock Yates are standing by in Road America to call the race for us. And during the race, I'll be here at the Imperial Palace Hotel in Las Vegas. We'll show you what I consider to be another historic landmark, a huge antique and classic car museum which is housed on the 5th floor of this luxury resort. As you remember, we were here a few weeks ago, and we were so impressed, we decided to return to show you some more classics. Now let's check in at Road America with Brock.
Thanks, Ed Bruce, and welcome again to Road America, where we always have some new surprises, not the least of which is that beautiful new press building. But down here on the starting grid, we've got the Ford Probe with a new track record, a surprise in its own self because, of course, this car has had some problems, now running really strong with Klaus Ludwig at the wheel, as I said, a new track record and ready to go. But that's not the only surprise we've got here at Road America, and let's go to my pal Steve Evans for that story.
It's a surprise, all right, Brock. In fact, a shock. The long-rumored Corvette GTP car is a reality, and here on the grid at Road America. Now, this is a greatly revamped Lola in Corvette trim, powered by a pushrod Chevrolet V6 engine, the same engine block you'd find in a Chevrolet pickup. It will be driven by David Hobbs, who will be relieved by Cyril van der Merwe, the two of them having their final conversation. Now, this car was a rocket in practice and in testing and qualifying. Some aerodynamic problems set in. It's back much further on the grid than it should be. So in many ways, David Hobbs is sitting in an unknown quantity. Ford and Chevrolet have been duking it out for years in drag racing, Grand National stock car racing, and now in IMSA. But first, let's take a look at 4 miles of the most challenging road course racing on the North American continent, Road America.
Right you are, Steve, and it's been a landmark of road racing since the early 1950s when road racers began to come to Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. And now let's get a driver's eye view of this 4-mile road course, courtesy of the Roush Racing Team, number 65 Ford Mustang, a race car that has done very well so far this season, piloted by John Jones, a young man from Thunder Bay, Ontario, and his co-driver today at Elkhart Lake, Lynn St. James, one of the finest women drivers in the history of the sport. So as John Jones accelerates out of the Road America pits, it's going to be Lynn St. James, his teammate, who is going to narrate our way around this long road course. Here goes John Jones heading down the long straightaway, slightly downhill, heading toward the 90-degree corner, turn number 1. This is a very fast section, lots of hard braking required here.
Coming off the front straightaway at Road America, you're going to enter a series of turns 1, 2, and 3. You're going faster here than you are anywhere else on the racetrack, so that's why it's very important that you have your car under control. But the most important of these 3 turns is turn 3 because it leads to the second longest straightaway at Road America.
The veteran drivers call this the Moraine Sweep, and it leads onto a long, somewhat downhill straightaway through a stand of trees right behind the pits. Here Jones accelerates up to 4th gear, reaches nearly 150 miles an hour before having to slow for turn 5.
Entering turn 5, you're coming downhill, so you're carrying a lot of speed. In fact, almost as much as you are on the front straightaway. This is a very slow turn, though, turn 5. You're gearing down to 2nd gear, so it's the place that you use the brakes the most, and a lot of passing goes on here. Then as you exit turn 5, you're going up a hill, up into turn 6, which is a very fast, blind left-hand turn.
Under the bridge, crank the wheel hard left and head down into a section called Hurry Downs here at Elkhart Lake, where the cars begin to sweep a little bit to the right, still running downhill, still carrying an awful lot of speed as they come off the crest. Here Jones will touch the brakes, set the car up for a fast downhill left-hander called turn 8, and then sweep into the biggest corner on the racetrack called the Carousel.
Turn 8's another hard turn on brakes because you're coming downhill as you enter it. You've got a very hard left-hand turn that then leads to the Carousel, which is an extremely fast part of the track. Very hard to get your car set up through there. You're topping out in 3rd gear. You have to make a quick shift to 4th gear in our GTO Mustang. You think, God, I finally made it through, but you've got the work really ahead of you because you've got a really fast right-hand kink that leads onto the back straightaway.
And here comes perhaps the most difficult part of the Road America racetrack, the long, kind of twisting back straightaway. It's narrow, it runs through a stand of trees, there's not much room for mistakes as they head through a corner called turn 12, where we have seen and probably will see an awful lot of trouble. An extremely difficult, very fast right-hand corner that we see Jones plunging into right now, then through a little section called Thunder Valley, where he will accelerate up through the gears, that little kink to the right, and then a left-hander underneath the spectator bridge, and then breaking out of the woods here at Elkhart Lake and heading toward the final corner here on this 4-mile circuit. It's a fast right-hander that is critical for establishing a fast lap time.
Turn 14 is so important because it's the last turn on the track that leads onto the longest straightaway, the front straight. So it's very important that you get set up early and come out just as strong as you can.
As we watch John Jones go up the hill and head toward the finish line, he'll hit nearly 170 miles an hour in his Mustang, but the GTP car's nearly 200 in this same stretch of pavement. Our thanks to John and to Lynn St. James, to the Roush Racing team for a terrific tour of this great racetrack.
It is indeed, Brock, and as beautiful as it is, challenging. And what an international field of drivers. On the pole to the Ford Pro, Klaus Ludwig from West Germany. We've got Bob Wallach from France co-driving with Bruce Levin. Of course, Derek Bell from England. Jochen Moss, also from West Germany, a Porsche factory driver. You've got, David Hobbs, Brian Redmond. They're from all over the world, the cars and the drivers.
They sure are. And a brilliant field of racing cars. The Porsches, we saw the Ford on the pole, as you said, the Chevrolet, a real dark horse. We got the Nissan, a brand new GTP car from Japan, the Jaguars. What a field of automobiles, Steve.
55 starters, Brock, over $10 million worth of racing machines. And we'll be keeping track of 3 classes. The GTP cars, of course, the fastest of them all, the all-out prototypes. Then there's the GTO machines, over 3-liter production base, like the car we saw John Jones take us around Road America in. And also the GTU cars, a little smaller, under 3 liters basically, also production based.
So we've got a terrific mix of domestics and imports here, Fords and Chevrolets, and of course Jaguars, Porsches, and some of the great exotic names from Europe. All lined up here, all ready to go. As you can see, the field is just streaming around here in this pace lap. It's a long 4-mile pace lap, plenty of time to warm the old tires up.
Well, it's a long race period, Brock. Endurance racing is supposed to be. So we'll be seeing driver changes throughout this contest. The pit crews will be busy with tires and fuel. And we're proud to be here for the 3rd consecutive year at Road America. In fact, we were the first to ever bring this road course into America's living rooms.
So they're accelerating out of that final turn, heading up the hill. It should be a green flag out here any minute now. That's Klaus Ludwig on the pole in the Ford. That's Evan Morrell, the official starter. The green is out, and it's Ludwig in the lead, but right behind him, that Porsche 962 of Drake Olsen. That's a bit of a surprise, Steve.
Drake Olsen, a young driver, Brock, but he already has 1 win under his belt this year at Lime Rock. He will be co-driving with Bobby Rahal. In second position, the red and white 962 Porsche. That's the oldest 962 we know of in this country or any other country. Drake Olsen right on the exhaust of the Ford Probe, driven by West Germany's Klaus Ludwig as they go under the bridge.
And right behind him, a longtime rival of Ludwig's in the Endurance Racing Series in Europe. That's Bob Wallach. And in 4th place, Steve, a bit of a surprise, Whitney Gans in the Buick-powered Hawk. Twin-turbo Buick V6. They qualified that car in 3rd, and right now he's riding in 4th. Had some reliability problems over the seasons, but it looks like old Whitney's got that thing running really well today.
Well, back in the 6th spot right now, the defending champions of this race, Al Holbert and Derek Bell. Holbert in the car right now. And you know, with their endurance experience, Brock, they don't care about leading at this point in time. They're going to hang back there in 6th and just kind of pick their way through.
Well, Road America is not a particularly wide racetrack, so there isn't a whole lot of room to pass, and the last thing you want to have happen is to bend some body work and have to make an early pit stop. So the old pros will just sit back and let the traffic clear before they start to make their move.
Well, they're they're content to let Klaus Ludwig in the Ford Probe be the rapid out there in front. And Ludwig, I would think, Brock, is trying to pace that car a little bit. If it's had any problems at all, they've been in the area of reliability. Even though on the western swing of IMSA in the last month or so, the car has finished shorter events.
Well, it's a 2-liter, brand-new 4-cylinder overhead cam engine designed by Ford of Germany. It has to be revved pretty high. It's not a particularly big displacement engine. As we know, the Porsches that have dominated this series are over 3 liters, so they've got plenty of displacement and a lot of flexibility. So I'm sure Klaus, his object right now is to finish this race. And if he has to fall back and sit back in second or third, then he'll do it. But right now, we've got a challenge for second place.
Second place now belongs to Bob Wallach in the number 86 962 Porsche. He took it down the long front straight away from Drake Olsen. So it's Klaus Ludwig in the Ford Probe in the lead, followed by Frenchman Wallach. Then it is Drake Olsen in a 962. Whitney Gans in the Buick Hawk, followed by Jochen Mass in another Porsche.
This special presentation of American Sports Cavalcade is being brought to you by B.F. Goodrich, makers of high-performance PA radials. We make cars perform. And by Ford and your local Ford dealer, who invite you to see the 1985 Ford cars and trucks. Have you driven a Ford lately?
It was a lead change while we were away here from the Löwenbräu Road America 500. It was Bob Wallach pushing his Porsche 962 past the Ford Probe of Klaus Ludwig to take #1 spot. I wonder, Steve, if Klaus is holding back or if he's having a little problem holding off some of these faster Porsches. As we watch, also Drake Olsen push past Klaus to take over the #2 spot. So the pole sitter now back in third place.
Well, Klaus really didn't do anything to defend his position there, Brock. He did everything but wave Drake Olsen by. I think he thought, let's let somebody else go out there and abuse their equipment for a while.
Well, as we watch those lead cars come off the final turn and head up that substantial hill on the straightaway here at Road America, that, of course, Wallach, right behind him, Drake Olsen, and back in that third spot, the Ford Probe. So we've got 3 vehicles starting to break away from the field here, because right behind them in fourth place, there's an interval between them and Whitney Gans in that Buick-powered Hawk.
So those 3 cars out front racing for it, and back, starting with fourth, you see him crest the hill there, and just behind Whitney Gans comes Jochen Mass in the 962 Porsche on the street radial tires. Now, Jochen Mass, he's as hard a driver as there is in the world, Brock, and he's going to pick up every position he can, even in the early going.
A lot of Formula One experience, a lot of endurance racing experience, a very, very fine driver, and all kinds of road racing equipment. But right now, he's locked in a struggle for fifth with a couple of other real contenders. Pete Halsmer, the number 68 team car of Jochen Mass, and the number 14 962 of Al Holbert, a car that has dominated competition so far this year. And right behind him, the black Nissan V6 turbocharged car of Don Devendorf.
Well, Brock, Jochen Mass wants to lead this race, I believe. He has now taken over 4th spot from Whitney Gans in the blue and white number 45 Buick V6 turbo car. And in fact, extending that lead quite a few car lengths over Whitney Gans in 4th position, Jochen Mass. The 67 car is usually co-driven by Californian Rick Newt, but factory Porsche driver Jochen Mass making what the team calls a guest appearance here at Road America.
And so far, a big hit with his boss, Jim Busby, the team leader. As we watch the cars come through the twisty back section, you can see a puddle of the racetrack. We've had rain here sporadically over the weekend. It has threatened some rain, but so far the racetrack is dry, at least in the fast groove. But the edge of the racetrack, plenty muddy, and the grass mighty slippery, so you don't want to get off the asphalt, Steve.
For the young driver in second place, the red and white car, number 16, Drake Olsen, this has got to be a dream come true, Brock, to be right behind the leader, the famous Frenchman, Bob Wallach. And you can bet he's watching every move Wallach makes and putting it into his racing repertoire.
Well, if he can pass Bob Wallach, he'll pass one of the best road racers in the business. From Strasbourg, France, just across the border in Germany, Wallach has run in European endurance events for a long, long time, comes back and forth across the Atlantic sporadically to run in IMSA-type competition. Always a contender. Run very well at Daytona over the years, in particular in the 24-hour race. But right now, he's out front. As we watch Don Devendorf slide inside that Porsche of Pete Halsmer to take over 7th place. That's a brand new automobile, or almost new. Only a couple of races under its belt. This 300ZX Turbo Nissan. Basically the engine that you'll find in the 300ZX sports car on the street. In fact, a lot of the engines in these GTP prototypes are based on production-type engines. In fact, the Porsche 962 has a production-based engine in it. And, of course, so does that Buick that we see running with Whitney Gans at the wheel.
And so does the Jaguar. That 12-cylinder power plant just carried Brian Redmond right past Pete Halsman for the 8th position. Now, those are normally aspirated engines. With the big 12-cylinder motor, you're not allowed to use a turbocharger.
Right. So the IMSA breaks the class down into racing-type engines and production-type engines, turbo and non-turbo engines. The smallest displacement engine in the race right now is the Ford Probe, because it's a pure racing engine and turbocharged.
But it has a 16-valve cylinder head, and that'll make up for a lot of the cubic centimeters of the bigger Porsche power plant.
So here comes Brian Redmond in the 04 Jag. Right behind him, Pete Halsmer in the 68 Porsche. And behind him, number 44, Chip Robinson in the other Jaguar, Steve.
Halsmer just flat out-muscled Brian Redmond. He's back around him again, and Chip Robinson in the teammate Jaguar, green and white 44, slides right with Halsmer. They both get around Redmond.
Well, Steve, so did David Hobbs in the prototype Corvette. So Brian Redmond either has some problems or just got so far off the line on that back straightaway that he lost all those positions. But in any case, it is now Chip Robinson in the 44 Jaguar challenging Pete Halsmer for the 8th spot as they head around that final corner and up the hill. Let's see how that normally aspirated V12 Jag can handle that turbocharged Porsche 962.
Well, it appears that he can't handle him, Brock. You see Halsmer moving around some traffic there and gaining not an inch is Chip Robinson.
Chip, one of the fine young drivers on this circuit. As we watch Al Holbert, has been kind of biding his time back around 5th, 6th spot. Right now, he's moved past Whitney Gans and that Buick Hawk, who, remember, started up in the 3rd spot, now slowly falling back. Whether or not Whitney is just trying to bide his time, kind of hold that car together, which has had some reliability problems, or if, in fact, the car is starting to evidence some mechanical problems. We don't know yet. But that man, number 14, Al Holbert, we know is a major factor in this kind of competition and cannot ever be counted out.
Another factor all of a sudden, Brock, and that's lap traffic. The slower GTO and GTU cars try to move over for the big boys, but they're out there running their own race and can't always do that. Klaus Ludwig, he's in 3rd spot in the Ford Probe number 7 and appears to be trying to move back up again. In fact, Klaus has set his sights on the number 2 car, Drake Olson, and he is got him on the inside.
He sure does, but the man of the hour is Jochen Mass in that number 67 Porsche. He got both Ludwig and Drake Olson in the twisty part of that back straightaway and has taken over 2nd spot.
What a show Jochen Mass is putting on today as guest driver in the Jim Busby number 67 car. Just an incredible drive. What a move, Brock.
On a brave man's move, much like what Pete Halsmer and Chip Robinson put on Brian Redmond a little bit earlier. A very fast and a very challenging part of this racetrack to try to pass, but Maas made it work.
Anytime you get this quality of drivers together, I don't care what they're piloting, Brock, GTP cars or Volkswagens, it's going to be a show. The speed is just relative. It is Bob Wallach, the Frenchman, car number 86, leading over Jochen Maas. A sensational pass to take over 2nd position. The Ford Probe, Klaus Ludwig still in 3rd. Then Drake Olson, another Porsche, and Al Holbert.
It's all ended early for Whitney Gans. A fine drive from the 3rd place, but he began to fall back, and now he's out with mechanical problems.
Also, while we were away, Brian Redmond in the green and white 04 Jaguar made contact with the Nissan GTP car driven by Don Devendorf, number 83. Now, this is turn number 12. Watch the black car on the outside. Redmond comes through on the inside, and a lot of fractured fiberglass.
And I'm sure a very unhappy Brian Redmond as he tries to keep it from spinning off into the grass. He does that, but falls way back before he gets the Jag restarted. Big troubles for Brian Rebden. Fortunately, didn't get shunted off into the grass by a slower car coming around him. As we watch, Pete Halsmer in the pits now, and there's trouble, Steve, with a left front wheel on that Porsche 962.
Apparently so. That's the only part of the car they seem concerned with. So, and staying in the car also is Pete Halsmer coming into the pits. Now, this is probably a scheduled stop. This is Klaus Ludwig, who was running in the second position. The Ford probe is in. Let's see if there's a driver change here. Yes, Doc Bundy of Gainesville, Georgia, replaces Klaus Ludwig in the cockpit of the Ford probe. The crew changing all 4 tires and wheels, gassing it up as well.
This will be a fairly lengthy stop as Doc Bundy gets ready to go. Remember, Doc ran a couple of seasons with the Jaguar team before moving over to the Ford probe this season. A very, very solid young driver, has had a lot of experience in sports car racing at the amateur level in Porsches before moving to Jaguar and then finally into this first-class Ford operation. So Doc Bundy accelerates through the gears out through the pit road here at Road America, trying to get back up into third place. He's fallen well back from that position that he held before his teammate Klaus Ludwig stopped.
But Klaus Ludwig, I know you came in exactly when you wanted to. Everything appears to be going very smoothly.
Yeah, everything is running super perfect.
Any instructions to Doc Bundy as he buckled up?
Yeah, we changed to another tire compound because we got a lot of understeer in the carousel. So we changed that, and I think now it's even better.
And a round of applause for this crew. What a pit stop.
Yeah, it was super. We practiced it and worked super.
Let's hope it keeps going like that.
Well, Klaus Ludwig, one of the very best of the sedan drivers in West Germany before coming over to run the probe. As we go to the number 67 Porsche 962 of Jochen Mass, he is in the pits for what appears to be a routine pit stop. Let's not forget he has had a terrific drive all day long, and of course an arch rival in the European endurance racing circuit to Klaus Ludwig, Steve.
Jim Busby had his helmet in hand there, but Jochen Mass waved him off. He said, I'm not tired yet. Let me stay out here a while, coach.
Well, a little bit of a pause there now, back underway with that beautiful black and white number 67 Porsche 962. And here comes the race leader, Bob Wallach, in the number 86 Porsche 962. His teammate, Bruce Levin, car owner Bruce Levin, will see whether or not he gets into the car. It doesn't look as if Bob Wallach is going to get out of that automobile.
No, I wouldn't think so. Brock Wallach was hired to drive as much of this race as he possibly can. The Ford probe is back in the pits. Doc Bundy, after only a few minutes at the wheel, has brought the Ford probe into the pits. This is bad news.
It is indeed, as the crew comes out of the pits, tries to open up the, looks like they're going to pull off the hood. Yeah, the engine compartment being opened up, so there is trouble in the Ford camp as one of the Ford Zaxbyt crewmen looks down in there. Looks like they're looking at part of the ignition system. It's a very complex engine, and it's hard to tell right away what the problem is, but they're going after it, and they've got some trouble, serious troubles.
And the benefactor from all of this is this young man getting a bit squirrely out there in that red and white Porsche. That, of course, is Drake Olson. He is the new leader.
Drake Olson, a young man who has tried so hard to make the big time over the years, worked as a mechanic, just bounced around from race team to race team because simply he didn't have the finances to buy his way into the big time. Long time recognized as a major talent, and right now, thanks to team owner George Dyson, has gotten the opportunity to run with a first-class machine, and he is showing his manifest skill right now.
And certainly his solo victory at Line Rock in one of the shorter IMSA races gives him a lot of confidence coming in here. And still sitting in the pits is Doc Bundy in the Ford probe. And Brock, I think right now they're looking at the cooling system on the automobile. It looks to be very hot.
It's very hard to say, Steve. We know that the car has experienced some very nagging little problems, nothing serious. At this point, though, it seems to be enough to put the car out of the race.
Brock, big trouble again for the Nissan GTP car number 83. Don Devendorf has badly mangled this automobile. He's off in the grass on the front straightaway. Don Devendorf for sure is out of this race. The door pops open. He's okay. In fact, we captured it on tape, as you'll see here. He gets sideways, tags the wall along pit row, scatters all of those mechanics, and it's not over yet. Sliding backwards, shedding sheet metal and fiberglass off of the car. He gets over into the grass and makes contact with the opposite wall.
Oh, tough break for Don Devendorf. Surely something broke. That happened on the main straightaway at probably about 150 miles an hour. But the guardrail saved everybody, including Don. And here's more trouble on the back straightaway.
In turn 11, emergency crews waving for all the drivers to be careful and slow down. 3 GTU cars, including rock and roll singer John Oates, who you saw in the yellow car on top of the rail, were involved. No serious injuries, but here comes Drake Olson. Now, he has no idea what's ahead of him there in turn number 11. Let's hope he can get through safely.
Well, Steve, on big racetracks like Road America, they've got flag stations all the way around where different types of flags are displayed. Right now, they're waving the yellow, which tells everybody to back it down and take it easy. So Drake Olson makes it through safely and no problems at this particular point. But the yellow flag is out all the way around the racetrack. That's David Hobbs getting off on the grass, trying to maneuver around the pace car.
Well, I'll tell you, it has gotten strange all of a sudden here at Road America. Seldom do you see a full course caution here, but we've got one now, and wisely so. It'll take a while to sort it all out. Let's go to Ed Bruce in Las Vegas.
Steve, it's no secret that Americans have had a love affair with the automobile since the first one hit the streets, right up until today. That's why museums such as this one here at the Imperial Palace Hotel are such popular tourist attractions. The combination of power and beauty and speed just strikes to the very core of the American spirit. So today I thought we'd zero in on some of the displays of American cars that take advantage of this fascination. This is a 1914 Ford Model T Speedster. It was really an all-purpose general consumption car, but it was designed after and closely resembled a very popular race car, the Mercer. That's why Henry Ford called it the Speedster. Honestly, though, with a 4-cylinder 20-horsepower engine, this Speedster couldn't go too fast. However, it did have some interesting features, like this round glass windshield and the big hand-controlled spotlight to help light the way at night. And take a look at the controls. This lever next to the steering wheel is the spark advance, which the driver had to set to start the car. And this other lever is the throttle advance, like the gas pedal. One other interesting feature on this Speedster, the crank start engine. I suppose if you were standing out on a cold winter morning trying to get your car started, you could get a little cranky.
Well, let's see how these guys do when they try to get their Porsche started. That is Al Holbert giving way to his longtime teammate, Derek Bell, on a routine pit stop here in the Löwenbräu Road America 500. And let's not forget, as long as this particular car has kept running, it's been almost impossible.
Away, and we are racing again in the Löwenbräu Road America 500. I'm Steve Evans, along with Brock Yates and Ed Bruce in Las Vegas. And as you can see on the leaderboard there, through a flurry of pit stops, all kinds of activity, the number 44 car with Bob Tullius, the V12 Jaguar, is in the lead.
And the question is right now, Steve, is how long can Bob hold on to that lead? Because right behind him on his bumper practically is Drake Olson, the number 16 Porsche that, remember, started second and has led most of this race. And there goes Olson, going to go right by Tullius, but it looks as if Bob's got some problems. Yes, he does, slowing way down.
And caught up in traffic is the second-place driver, Bob Wallach, and that's allowing Drake Olson to sprint away.
So there goes Olson with Wallach hot in pursuit as they come down off the carousel. And look at that. Drake Olson gets a little wobbly as he gets it straightened out, heading down into the back straightaway. The twisty part, that's turn 11, where we've had a lot of problems. That's Cyril Vandermeer, who's in the Corvette, the car that David Hobbs has been driving, and now Cyril's taking it over as we watch Olson try to set him up in turn number 12 to get by him. But Cyril is a lap down.
And there's Bob Tullius, the 44 car. He has pulled it out of traffic, off onto the grass, conferring with the turn workers. He's looking for a tow back to the pit area. It's a long ways.
Well, that's a tough break. Those automobiles, those V12 Jaguars, can go a little bit farther than the turbocharged cars, and it looked as if through a series of pit stops that Robinson and Tullius were in good shape, but right now they're way out of it. Look at this. The Corvette is holding off the leader, Drake Olson, as they go up the main straightaway. Lots of speed on that Corvette's part right now, Steve.
Indeed. I think they've tweaked the boost up a little bit on the Corvette. They were running a very conservatively early. Ryan Falconer, the engine builder from Salinas, California, hoping to just get a finish for Chevrolet in its debut appearance. Now, if Drake can get around the Corvette, it'll put Cyril Vandermeer with the David Hobbs team yet another lap down.
a little smoke issuing from the exhaust pipes of that V6 turbocharged Chevrolet. This is an interesting car, Steve. It's been around a couple of years in the hands of Chevrolet, been tested extensively, but not competed until recently when Charlotte automobile dealer and team owner of the Grand National Stock Car, Jeff Bodine, got a hold of the automobile and has put it into the hands of Hobbs and Vandermeer.
It's Rick Hendricks you're talking about, Brock, and he seems to want to race everything. Grand National, drag racing with Ron Morrison, and now endurance championship racing IMSA style.
As we watch a struggle for third place between Jochen Mass, Derek Bell, and Brian Redmond. Redmond, of course, in the other Jaguar. The team leader, Bob Tullius, fell out with the other automobile. Let's go to Steve Evans with Chip Robinson.
Especially on a course this long, and you've unfortunately been through that, but when you're out there, it's got to be the loneliest feeling in the world.
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible. You know, it's horrible. It's the only way to explain it.
Okay, lots. You know how Bob Tullius feels right now, and Chip Robinson was looking forward to taking the wheel of the 44 car, so he's a bit disappointed himself.
So Chip is finished for the day. No chance to drive again here at Road America, but a good show by the Jaguars, usually very reliable automobiles.
And what a good race, Brock, we have got for third position. It is Jochen Mass in the 67 car now being overtaken by Derek Bell. The blue and white number 14 Porsche takes over third, and back there in the fifth spot is Brian Redmond in the 04 Jaguar. All three of them just nose to tail.
And all three, Steve, among the very best in this kind of endurance sports car racing, from Le Mans to Daytona to Sebring. They've seen them all. They won them all. Great drivers. There goes Derek Bell up the hill, and here's a lead change. Bob Wallach slides in front of Drake Olson at the end of the main straightaway to take over first place.
So it's the blue and white 962 number 86 of Bob Wallach out in front of Drake Olson, but look at young Olson. He is still hanging right in there.
He sure is, but right now the pattern of the race is beginning to establish itself. We've got Porsches in the first four spots. That reliability, that strength of those automobiles from Stuttgart, West Germany is beginning to tell, as it does so many times in this kind of endurance racing. And now let's go to Steve with Doc Bundy, who had such a brief ride in the Ford.
Well, Doc, it would be real easy for you to almost think of yourself as a jinx. You get into a perfectly good running automobile and it falls apart. What happened?
What happened, a little 25-cent hose clamp broke on the water pipe, and it was running, the gauges were high when I was sitting there, but I figured, well, that happens at a pit stop. When I went out, they came down a little bit, and I got in traffic, really couldn't watch them close enough, and they got up, it was losing water at a pretty good rate, and on my second lap, I was going down a little chute back air, passing some cars, and I felt her tighten. So I let off, and I looked at the gauge, and it was pegs.
So a tough break for Doc Bundy as we watch a pair of Porsches driven by the veteran from France, Bob Wallach, against the kid from Connecticut, Drake Olson, fight it out for the lead in the Löwenbräu Road America 500.
Here at Road America, but there's a little sunshine in the career of Lynn St. James. You'll recall earlier she talked us around this Road America course. Well, she has taken over that Mustang GTO car from John Jones and enjoys a big lead. And Brock Yates, no woman has ever won an IMSA GT race.
Well, nobody could deserve it more than Lynn. She's been around a couple of years in this type of competition, and before that established a name for herself in Kelly Girl competition. And of course, those are kind of big bore stock car type road racing machines that gave her a lot of experience and set her up for driving a very, very fast car like this SVO Mustang.
As I said, though, the clouds are building. We may see rain before this is over. Here is a planned pit stop on the part of the Corvette GTP car, and coming out will be the South African Cyril van der Merwe, going in the Englishman David Hobbs.
Well, David started this automobile. We know him from a long, long time ago in all kinds of racing. Runs stock cars, Indy cars, Grand Prix cars, sports cars, you name it, Hobbs has driven it. We saw him earlier in the season running Bruce Levin's Porsche 962, but when they decided to put this Corvette on the racetrack, I'm sure that David Hobbs was one of the first choices. He's an extremely versatile driver, adapts very quickly to different types of machinery, understands chassis and suspensions, never really hurts the car, Steve Evans. Very, very seldom ever gets off the racetrack, and when he does, it's usually somebody else's fault.
And a lot of people, Brock, are more familiar with David Hobbs as a sports commentator, doing exactly what we're doing today for various networks. So David Hobbs is back out in the Corvette GTP car. He enters the track in 12th position, and coming into the pits right now, this is our leader, Bob Wallach, number 86. We may well see a driver change here, Brock.
What a job Wallach has done as he climbs out of the car, assisted by the man who not only is going to co-drive it for him, but owns the car. That's Bruce Levin from Seattle, Washington.
And because of this pit stop, Drake Olson becomes the leader. Well, not for very long, possibly. Derek Bell trying to take Olson on the inside, but it does not work. Number 16, Drake Olson, interestingly enough, in the first 962 that Bruce Levin owned. He sold it to this team, and now maybe he wishes he hadn't.
Well, Drake Olson has all he wants right now of Derek Bell in his rear view mirror. Bell working his way up through the field. Remember, Al Holbert started the car back in 5th spot, fell back a little bit, and now has his teammate Derek Bell challenging for the lead. It's taking a little bit of time as you see Bob Wallach helping Bruce Levin get hooked into that car to get back underway.
So Levin is still in the pits, and for that team, they watch the first place spot get further and further away from him. Now here's Levin. He has not driven all day, trying to get used to that lag in the turbo boost. They don't make much low-end power. You got to really bring the RPMs up to get him out of the pits.
Well, it's going to be a tough job for Bruce Levin. By his own admission, he does not claim to be as quick as the professionals on this racetrack. And he usually hires one of the very quick drivers like Wallach to hold up his end. Bruce tries to give him a little bit of a rest in the middle of a long race, and hopefully he can stay near enough to the leader so Wallach can get the car back into contention.
Well, the leaders right now, Brock, are in a lot of traffic. When you see the red and white number 16 come through, he is the leader right there. And behind Drake Olson, of course, is Derek Bell. Now, Bell is such a conscientious race car driver. He is not going to take a chance in this traffic of a miscue taking anybody out of the race, especially himself.
So it's going to get interesting as the two leaders move into the final corner. Right in front of them, the number 5 Porsche 962 being driven right now by Jim Mullen, the advertising executive from Boston, Massachusetts. And look at this, the two leaders right in behind Mullen. Let's see what transpires as they all head toward that very, very fast turn number 1 at the end of the straightaway.
It is Derek Bell, your new leader. That'll push Drake Olson back into the 2nd position. The lap 962 car of Jim Mullen 3rd in the picture.
So for the first time today, Derek Bell and his teammate Al Holbert have pushed their number 14 Porsche up into the number 1 spot. But right behind him, Drake Olson not about to give up.
Now, Derek Bell and Al Holbert have a significant lead in the IMSA year-long point standings. They hope to pad that a bit here today. It's actually Holbert who has all of those points. Bell out there trying to make sure he helps Al get that car to the winner's circle.
Well, of course, that car is sort of the factory automobile in North America. Al Holbert running Porsche operations here in the States. And that is the number 40 Corvette of David Hobbs off the racetrack, now back underway, but very slowly. We wonder if he's broken something, Steve.
Well, it's hard to say if he broke something before or after the spin, Brock. We're going to take a look at it again. David Hobbs' problem here in the Corvette GTP car number 40. You see, it's a little twitchy now going back out of the racetrack. Now, here he was all by himself. Not another car even in the picture, but seemingly a bit out of the established groove, and all of a sudden the rear end just comes around on him.
Well, it's possible that he broke a sway bar, maybe a shock, or a tire went down on him. But that is a very, very rare incident for a veteran like David Hobbs, and you have to guess the car is having a mechanical problem, especially in the chassis.
And meantime, Brock, in the pit area for a scheduled stop, this is Drake Olson getting out, and Bobby Rahal, a man who can drive just about anything with wheels on it, getting in. Rahal's first tour of duty during this race from Dublin, Ohio. As you said earlier, a competent Indianapolis driver. He can do anything.
He sure can. Has some Grand Prix racing experience and is rumored to be the first selection of the Ferrari team when they bring their car to the 1986 Indianapolis 500. Bobby Rahal, a real charger. Any car he gets into will be driven flat out. That's guaranteed. As the number 16 Porsche 962 gets underway, that's Drake Olson. What a job he's done so far today here at Road America. But at least he knows that the man out there in his place, Bobby Rahal, is going to drive it just as hard as anybody on the racetrack. And now, let's go to Ed Bruce in Las Vegas.
Brock, earlier I showed you a 1914 Ford Model T Speedster. That car was manufactured to cater to the American public's fascination with speed. This is another example of that same concept. It's an American LaFrance built in 1918. It was actually built to race, but many people bought it just to have a fast car. This is a huge automobile. It's a series speedster with a 4-cylinder dual chain drive powertrain. Like the Model T, it has a magneto, so you had to set the switch and crank start it to fire the engine. As you can see, the car sits up high off the ground because roads were pretty rough back then and you needed the clearance to protect the undercarriage of the automobile. Now let's look at the cockpit. Notice the steering wheel is on the right-hand side. And these two big levers are the emergency brake and the gear shift. Directly behind the driver are these large dual gas tanks. And drivers could really get a feel for the open road in this car because there's no windshield. This American LaFrance Series Speedster was manufactured in Elmira, New York by the American LaFrance Company. One interesting note about the American LaFrance, if you take a look at some of the old fire engines built around 1920, you'll see what I mean. Fire engines were the mainstay of the American LaFrance firm.
Well, the way this Porsche rolled into the pit, you'd think it was a fire truck headed for a blaze. That's just a quick driver change on the part of Derek Bell and Al Holbert. Holbert getting in, Bell helping him. They'll take tires on all four corners, a full load of fuel, and go out a few positions down. But Al Holbert will be gunning for the leaders. We'll be back with more of the Löwenbräu Classic 500 here at Road America after this. Man, Jim Mullen had to feel among the most fortunate people on this planet today. He walked away from an incident in the number 5 Porsche 962 that could have left him seriously injured or even worse. Watch the red car on the outside of turn 6 as he makes contact with Pete Halsmer's number 68 Porsche, and then the trouble really begins. Headed for the woods at Road America is Jim Mullen. Unbelievable.
Mullen squirts across the verge at about 75 miles an hour, bounces off a tire wall and into a stand of trees. The accident looks enormously serious at first, but fortunately Jim Mullen, his impact probably cushioned by the stand of trees, is able to crawl free from his Porsche 962.
And this team, Bob Akins and Jim Mullen, this is the second car they have had badly damaged, if not destroyed, this year. First it was Bob Akin, who was blindsided by John Paul Jr. at Charlotte, and now this, an expensive hobby for these two.
Well, meanwhile, back in the pits, that is the Lola Chevrolet Corvette of David Hobbs and Sarah Vandermeer into the pits. Remember, we saw David limping around the racetrack, and now, unfortunately, the car looks as if it is out.
The valve cover is off the right-hand side of the motor, indicating some valve train problem, no doubt. And here are our leaders.
Well, that's the boss, Al Holbert, in the factory Porsche 962, leading Bobby Rahal, the Charger, who's backing up Drake Olson in the number 16 Porsche 962. So a pair of Porsches. In fact, the number 16 car is, as you said earlier, Steve, one of the old-timers, the first Porsche to reach these shores, and was originally raced by the Bruce Levin team.
Absolutely. They sold it to this squad out of Connecticut, and I don't think ever thought it would come back to haunt them quite like it has.
Well, I'll tell you what, you stick a couple of leadfoots like Rahal and Olson in the car, and they're going to make it run. And look at that. Rahal right on Al Holbert's tail. In fact, he's going to try to put a move on him as they come into turn 12 and will take the lead.
Bobby Rahal now leads series leader Al Holbert. What a matchup between these two. The fans are getting their money's worth here.
They sure are. Out of Thunder Valley, underneath the Spectator Bridge, headed toward the final turn here at Road America. There it is. Bobby Rahal sweeps through that corner on the boost, up the hill, hitting probably 190 miles an hour, maybe over the 200-mile-an-hour mark, depending on what kind of boost he's using. And he holds the lead as they complete yet another lap here on this 4-mile road course. Let's not forget that Rahal and Olson put this car second on the grid right next to the Ford Probe, while the best that Holbert and Bell could do was 5th overall on the starting grid. So this number 16 Porsche, old as it is, has shown a lot of speed all weekend. And now let's go to Steve in the pits.
David Hobbs, it appears that the Corvette is headed back to the truck.
Well, yeah, but it did pretty well. It ran nearly 3 hours, which I'd say for the first time out, it's quite good, really. It's developed a misfire of some sort.
So all in all, you'd have to call it a qualified success.
Yeah, I think so, really. We treated this as a sort of a long distance test, and we did do quite a few miles, and it went very competitively while it was going. And you know, it gives us an idea of what to look for. We know 1 or 2 problems now, which you find out better in a race than you do in a test, because when you're up against the opposition, it's all very well coming in doing some good times tomorrow or Tuesday and say, well, that's as quick as the quick guys, but when you're actually here with them is how you find out what's going on. And we've learned a lot of lessons today.
as Jim Busby, the leader of the two-car Porsche 962 team, 67-68, comes in. He's riding in fourth spot. He'll give way to Jochen Mass. And remember how strong he ran early in the going as Bobby Rahal leads it here at Elkhart Lake.
Löwenbräu, Road America 500. I'm Steve Evans, along with Brock Yates and our buddy Ed Bruce down in Las Vegas. Bobby Rahal is leading in car number 16, the Porsche 962. But anything can happen when you put Frenchman Bob Wallach back in the car, and he is back in place of car owner Bruce Levin, and slowly but surely nibbling away at the leaders. Rahal in front, Holbert second, then the Jaguar of Haywood, and then Wallach in the fourth position and running like a freight train.
Well, in the top five, there are 4 Porsches and 1 Jaguar. Ooh, a little bit of a spin there. A big spin. That's Al Bacon in that Mazda going off into the weeds. He was hit by Don Bell as they drove into that corner, but Bacon keeps on going. No apparent body damage. So Al Bacon out of Kingsport, Tennessee, keeps on running, but he got himself a little bit of a scare there, but fortunately, no serious damage.
Brock, this is serious. I don't believe this is a scheduled stop by Al Holbert. You see Derek Bell standing by. Holbert has brought the car in. He wasn't out that many laps. Something is wrong. Absolutely. The crew taking off the rear portion of the body to have a look at the power plant.
Well, it sounds like it's running on about 3 cylinders out of the 6, and there is big problems as they pull that fiberglass body section off the hood. Holbert stays in the car. Derek Bell just standing by, hoping that they can get it sorted out. But the crew now probing around. It looks as if it may be part of that very complicated ignition system in that Porsche, Steve.
Well, Brock, look at the racetrack. It is raining heavier now. It is raining on the back part and closing in on the entire 4-mile circuit. There is Bobby Rahal, and you can see how much slower he is going on this wet racetrack. Remember now, these racing tires are slick. They have no tread whatsoever. But every team has a set of rain tires standing by. We may see a lot of activity on pit row here momentarily if it continues like this.
Well, notice also that Rahal wasn't using his windshield wipers. As we see Bob Wallach come in, he's currently in 3rd spot, and they are going to go for the rain tires. Those are big groove tires as opposed to the slicks. They release a lot of water. They make for much, much better traction in both cornering and braking. And this is an interesting gamble, though, because if it stops raining and dries off, then
Miracle from his crew working on that 962 Porsche. There's Al. He has already put in his co-driver Derek Bell, but I think for Derek it's just a dry place to sit right now as a to confer. The car just doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere for the remainder of this event. They do have a big points lead and will probably continue with that lead. Right now Brock is with one of the luckiest men we've encountered in a long time.
Well, Steve, I'm with a long-time pal, Jim Mullen, and you hate to see anybody go into the trees, but especially a friend. And you look pretty good, but it was a harrowing ride. What happened, Jim?
Well, I let Al Holbert through on turn 5, and I saw there was another car behind me that I thought was a BFG car, and it turned out it was. In my opinion, he didn't have a pass made. I braked, I got back on the gas, turned into the corner, and lo and behold, Pete Halsmer thought he had
John in his last run?
Well, it only happened, I think, about 5 laps to go. So the car was really running strong the whole race. Of those last 5 laps that we had the main problem.
You're agonizing as your partner runs around there at about half speed, huh?
Yeah, as you know, I kind of gotten robbed before in some other races, and I thought, oh no, not again. But I saw Johnny come by with his 2, fingers up, so I thought, I think he's only got second gear, and he can go forever. It just takes a little while. That's all.
Well, you parked that thing as soon as the checker came out. I noticed that.
Yeah, I was afraid it ruined it, that I had to run it, so I didn't stop right away.
Well, our congratulations to both of you. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, and now let's go to Steve.
Okay, thank you, Brock. And Bobby did a heck of a job battling back again to take second spot after you lost it there for a while.
Yes, on the other side, we were lucky. The Jag retired and the Löwenbräu car. But, I mean, this is racing, and we were trying very hard for all the distance, and, well, lucky enough, we finished second.
When the rain started coming down, what were your thoughts? Could that work for you or against you? What did you think at the time?
Well, I didn't know really, because I never had a chance to drive the car in the rain, and especially with these tires, I'm not used to these tires in the rain because I haven't been driving the car, as I said before. But it worked very well, and we were going nicely and steadily, and it worked.
Now let's take a look at the GTU results. Jack Baldwin and Jeff Klein win it in their Mazda, beating out Chris Cord and Dennis Ossie in their Toyota. I'm Brock Yates, along with Steve Evans, our pal Ed Bruce down in Las Vegas. Thanks for joining us from Road America.
The executive producer of Diamond P Sports is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. This special presentation of American Sports Cavalcade has been brought to you by B.F. Goodrich, makers of high-performance TA radials. We make cars perform. And by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately?
A concert for America. Capture the full excitement Sunday, September 22nd, live on the Nashville Network.
American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.